Hi, everybody. Mindy, we kind of started talking about your little dog the other day, but then got sidetracked. Is it a Yorkie?
No, she is, I'll grab her. She is right now she's out of her cart. She's a little Chihuahua mix.
Oh,
You
okay.
can see her.
From a distance, she looked really tiny.
Yeah, I used to do the virtual home visits for a rescue out of New York.
Uh-huh.
And she was born with a spinal deformity.
Uh-huh.
And so she's never been able to use her back legs. So we adopted her. So she has a little diaper. She's very
Oh,
good. And I have 4 other kind of Chihuahua weenie dog mixes, and she runs the house. She's
yeah,
like at 8 pounds, she's
yeah.
tough. Yeah.
Ramona has 2 paraplegic dogs. Well, actually, one passed away, so she just has one now, but the one that's left is the boss as well. But it's a big German Shepherd, but still, it's
They
it's
know.
it's not the strongest dog. It's just the strongest willed dog.
And they know that she's, got something on with her. They're nice to her.
I was curious about her wheelchair because she is so tiny. I mean, 8 pounds is still really small. That's only a little bigger than Riley.
There's a place in Massachusetts called Eddie's Wheels.
Yeah, that's where Ramona got hers too.
Yeah, and because we live in Connecticut, we took her up there. They did all the measurements and then sent it to us. I mean, this thing is great.
Yeah, they're really amazing. Once they get that, they're
normal. Yeah, they can run with everybody, and
yeah. My brother has a dog that got hit by a car, I think 2 summers ago now, and once she healed up, which was pretty quick, they got her in a wheelchair, and she just goes everywhere. just like it's normal.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's very good.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
Good. Yeah. Anybody running into any issues with the pattern that they need to ask about or anything like that? Was I gonna ask her?
I've just had several false starts.
Oh,
So I cast on all over again today. Well, I'm a little bit behind.
What are you making?
It's changed. I was making the long scarf, but now I'm making the large cowl. And I'm optimistic that the 5th time's the charm. So I'm hoping it's nothing wrong with anybody but me. The pattern, of course, is fine. It's not that. It's that I got off in my stitch count, and it, So on one of the stripe A rows.
Yeah, at least you can use markers with these patterns for the most.
I have a bowl full that I am going to stick on here. So
and that cast on for the long cowl is a bear, keeping it all straight.
It's long, yep, and you don't want to twist it. So
oh, you gonna come up, say hi? Come on. Oh, good girl.
There is a trick. If you do end up twisting your long cowl cast on, check YouTube for fixing a circular cast on, because after you did your first row, you can do this little switcheroo and it fixes the infinity scarf.
If you're in the first row, you can fix it, but most people don't find out until they've knit 3 inches and can't, and it won't turn anymore.
Exactly.
The designer that has the Bluebird box, she has a video out, and it looked to me like she was like 3 or 4 rows in, where she pulled the stitch out And then,
Ah.
that might be another video you want to look at.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What are you up here to say? Do you want to say something to everybody? No, you just want to be in the ownership seat, huh? Yes.
So I'm also part of the Restart Large Cowl Club. But this time I'm on row 10 of the first clue and I'm confident with the second and third clues, but this first one was a lot of counting for me. But I've succeeded so far.
Well, and probably by now you've focused in on ways like strategies for clearly the pattern, like migrates from left to right at first, and then it reverses course, and the stitches are all the same basically. Knit two together, yarn over, knit five, and you're just moving that pattern one stitch forward for every round.
Totally got that. It's more, my challenge came remembering, like repeating to myself,
Counting to
knit
five.
yeah, keeping
I know.
track of where I am in those five.
Yeah.
The other thing I did that helped me was rather than switching colors right away, I knitted a row of the gray before I switched colors. So hopefully I don't run out of gray, but I felt like it made the whole structure a lot stable.
Yeah, I mean, at the end, if you don't have enough gray, you can use a different color that's contrasting on that edge. It doesn't have to be the gray. Literally, you can really do so many other things than what the pattern says.
Good to know.
I finished my lap blanket. I finished it a couple weeks ago, but I'm just getting around to blocking it. But I waited before I blocked it because I knew I used a lot. I used almost all my yarn, and so the yarn in 5 skeins weighs about 285 grams, and I used 269 grams to knit it. So I just made stripes the length, the depth that would use up my yarn basically. So all I have left are scraps that won't make another row.
And
What are your finished dimensions?
Well, the just off the needles, it is 32 inches long and I think 28 inches wide. So I'm very confident it's gonna, and I have 11 stripes of different widths. So I'm very confident that it's gonna block out just fine to the size indicated on the pattern.
And can I ask what the third wool is?
Yeah, well, I was just giving everybody a few minutes to get in.
Okay.
I'll talk about it. So we can start. So it's this is a brand new one for us. It's something we've never done before. It's and some people may have figured it out already, but it's has anybody figured it out who hasn't seen the website? Anybody?
I haven't.
No.
Anybody who hasn't seen the website figure it out just by feeling it or looking at it?
I've got to figure it out and ordered some more.
I yeah, I mean, it's been up on the website for a couple days because we have to get everything ready before the email goes out. But it's called Perendale. So it's a sheep called Perendale, which is it's a fairly modern breed actually, and it's a breed that was established in New Zealand in the 1950s. 1956 was when the first kind of settled cross was established. And it's a cross between a Romney sire and I'm sorry, Cheviot, a border Cheviot sire and a Romney ewe. So it has an interesting background. Like all of them, right? The professor who developed the breed is named Sir Geoffrey Perrin, and at Massey University. He was the one who kind of systematically developed this new breed. Although on farms and sheep stations in the surrounding region, farmers had already been experimenting with ways to improve on the Romney breed by creating a new breed. So just like with several of the other breeds that we've talked about, in the mid 1800s, there was a huge need arose kind of overnight with the Industrial Revolution for wool demand worldwide expanded kind of exponentially. And at the same time, people migrating to Australia and New Zealand saw a real opportunity there to create an economy around wool production, with wool prices soaring and even the need for meat rising around the world. Lots of people who had experience and didn't have experience went to Australia and New Zealand for a better life and for new opportunities in the industry, to establish, just like here, people traveling across this country and claiming land on the frontier from the Midwest all the way to the Pacific Ocean, and using those lands to raise cattle and sheep and pigs and crops. The same thing happened in Australia and New Zealand. But by the mid 1900s, by the 1930s, actually, they began to run into problems in those areas with overgrazing. So not using the land that they had really well, or managing the grass crop as well as they probably should have. And a lot of the midlands and interior spaces in Australia and New Zealand became more arid and scrubby, and not producing the rich grasses that the Romney sheep thrive on. Because if you remember our discussion about Romney, they're a marsh sheep that is used to foraging on wetlands, and so nice, crisp, moist grasses, very green forage for them. And that, Australia and New Zealand have really hilly areas. They don't always get the rainfall that they need for that kind of lush grazing land. And so ranchers began thinking about crossing some of the British hill sheep or border sheep with the Romney to improve the breed, and perhaps even bring forward a new breed that would acclimate better to the lands of this part of the Southern Hemisphere. So first they tried let me think now. Oh, darn it. I'm sorry. I had it right in my head just a second ago. I have to look at my notes. First, they tried a different cross. I'm probably not going to be able to find that information right away. And that didn't work out very well. It might have been, it wasn't Lincoln. Sorry, just give me a minute. I have lots and lots of notes that I haven't memorized completely. I'm having trouble putting my finger on it at the moment. They tried a different cross at first, thinking that would work, and it might have been Merino, but I'm not sure. And they just weren't getting consistent results. So instead, they backed up and started with the Cheviot, the border Cheviot, which is Cheviots are a family of sheep that have 3 different types, but they're all really similar, and they're all, hill sheep from Wales, Scotland, and the borderlands between Scotland and England. And as I mentioned, sorry,
And every week I have a different.
Carolyn, I think you're not muted.
Oh, whoops, somehow I got.
So Cheviot sheep, which we were hoping to get that wool for the wool along, and as I mentioned last week, there was a little mishap with that. So they are a hill sheep that produces a very sturdy, kind of a silky, it's a fine wool, but it's a stiffer, but it's, oh, darn it. Sorry about that. So Cheviot is a fine wool and a longer staple, like a 5 to 6 inch staple, but it behaves more like a silky long wool. It's very fine, but it's not, it's like a little bit more like Shetland than like Merino, for instance, which is very bouncy. Cheviot has a very interesting structure in its hair follicle. It grows in a helix, whereas we've talked before about wool having a crimp and the hair being shaped in a zigzag shape. Well, and most wool grows that way, but there are a few breeds like Cheviot that have this corkscrew shape in their hair, and it actually makes the hair sturdier and more resilient for harder wearing fabrics. So it thrives on scrubby forage. It doesn't need very much food to produce, a full body, a full carcass of meat, and a beautiful, beautiful fleece. Cheviot's fleece it looks a little bit like, it's very silky. It's hard to describe the fleece. It looks a little bit like an Icelandic, but shorter. It's got a pretty kind of, it almost looks like eyelash on the body of the sheep. It's very pretty. So crossing this over the Romney. So the Romney, as we talked about before, is a large, round, fluffy sheep with fluffy fleece. They produce a very large fleece that's dense and bouncy, and although it is a long wool. The Cheviot sheep have, where the Romney is a luster wool, the Cheviot is a longer fleece, but not really considered a luster wool. So their fleece is a little chalkier. And the cross between them created the Perendale, which also has a lower luster fleece with the silkiness of the Cheviot, but not the corkscrew shape to its hair. And it is considered a long wool with a 5 to 6 or 5 to 7 inch length hair. And the yearly fleece weight runs around 9 or 10 pounds. So it's a pretty good sized fleece, but not the biggest. I think last week when we talked about Corriedale, some of those have 15 and 16 pound fleeces. These sheep are large, but not quite as voluminous or dense a fleece. Because it's a long wool, we haven't talked about this as much in the mystery wool along, but long wool sheep have an advantage for ranchers that that run large herds of them, and that is that their fleeces come in from the field much cleaner than a merino type or a fine wool type, which tends to have a greasier, waxier fleece that attracts vegetable matter to it. Long wools like Shetland and Lincoln and Cheviot, they tend to shed vegetable matter a little more easily and come in from the field a little cleaner, so that it's a little bit, it makes processing a little bit easier. I'm sure they get just as much poop on their fleece as any other sheep, but they're not that clean. But they do keep, they do come in with less grass and sticks and things like that in their fleece. It just doesn't stick. Let's see. The Perindales, obviously, looking at the color of our yarn, can be bred in a range of colors. Ranchers that are raising them for, you know, a wool market are generally trying to get at, you know, a larger quantity of white fleece out of it. But with the Romney cross, so Cheviots are largely white. Like colored Cheviots do exist, but they're very rare. But Romneys come in a wide range of shades, and so the Cheviot Perindale cross is going to produce shades of wool as well. So this is a modern breed, having been developed after 1950, and it's a modern breed that has maintained a range of colors, which is somewhat unique. The obviously, for our purposes, we're always seeking sources that do that focus on that. So our Perindale comes from a wool grower in Maryland. It's a single source, so we got it all from one farm. We thought from the fleeces, well, let me just, I'm going to share some content for a minute from my photos, just so you can see what the sheep look like. Alrighty. Okay, so first of all, this is Sir Geoffrey Perrin and his Perindale sheep at the Massey Sheep Station in New Zealand. This would have been around the time of the, you know, first generations of the sheep here. Then let's see, I want to, I don't think I can just go to the next picture. This is one of our, literally one of our Perindales. Oh, there we go. Look at her. So this is a nice round bodied, you can see how big the back end is. That's the part of the breeding for dual purpose, is to get a good meat carcass, and most of that is going to be in the back of the animal. So there's your leg of lamb, and your in the middle there, your rib, what do they call it, a crown roast of lamb along the ribs. You can see the head of the animal is, the face is clear of fleece. There's not lots of fleece growing on the face, which is good because some sheep that have a lot of fleece over their faces, they end up kind of blind from it. Like, you know, they have accidents because they can have fatal accidents because they can't see where they're going and they fall off a cliff or whatever. They do have a little top knot of hair there. Their ears are pointed and tend to be upright. The face is very much like the Cheviot face. Let me go to the next sheep photo. There's one. I love this picture. So Zach took these at the Maryland Sheep and Wool Show. So that is so much similar to the face of the Cheviot sheep, with the upright ears and pointed face. The eyes are, kind of small, and the head is big and long. It's not too stubby. And you can see that these fleeces, the one in the back in particular, that's like really close to the fleece that we got our yarn from. The one in the front is much lighter. And then we have you can get fleece as dark as this. This is the shepherdess showing Zach. This is a lock of hair, and you can see how it varies from the root to the tip is at the right hand side, and the root is toward her ring finger there. And you can see it's very silvery on the one end, and then it gets to a dark brown, and then the tips are kind of bleached to a caramel color. And all of that color plays a part in the final yarn. So she's holding a skein of spun yarn and then a basket of carded roving wool for hand spinning. And that's all just a blend of that same lock. So that one is a little darker than what we got. I have a photo of our fleece being sheared. So that's our fleece on the hoof being sheared. And you can see here why we thought we were going to get a silver gray yarn out of this wool. So we had planned our color range around this being, maybe the color of the Kent and Tide Pool or something like that. And then when we got it, it was what you have in your hands is so much more bronzy gold that we ended up having to change our Kent color because they were too close to each other. I think I explained that when we did the Kent, but now you can see why we made the mistake we made, because we didn't know what was going to happen. Anyway, isn't that beautiful? I mean, I don't know, anyone here who hand spins or has, some experience with raw fleece, you could just see how beautiful and healthy that fleece is. You can see the outside looks like it's black almost, but then where it's opened up down near the, down closer to the skin, it's much lighter. It's just got beautiful, beautiful shading in it. The tips of a lot of these fleeces were that more of that bronzy color. And we didn't, we're talking about, Sheila, we're talking about Perendale. That bronzy color that's on the tips just played a much bigger part in the overall color than we thought, than we knew might happen. Okay, let me just see if there's any other photos that I think that's all the photos I have. But it was kind of cool to meet our very sheep that made our very yarn. I'm always excited about that. I don't know if Zach gathered the names of the sheep, but or if they have names. Some people don't name their sheep. But anyway, it's always a kind of a thrill. So Perendales were bred to be a production sheep that, and like other production sheep we've talked about, what producers look for in a cross is sheep that do well out on the range, out in the pasture lands on their own. They don't get sick easily. They resist worms and mites and things like that that can get to sheep out in the field when they can't be monitored very closely. They are able to forage, like I said, on a variety of different vegetable matter, including some really scrubby stuff, and still produce a nice, sweet and tender carcass. They mother well. They have they're good producers of lambs, you know, with a high rate of twins or multiple births, and healthy ones. So they have multiple healthy lambs that they mother well, that they know right away how to get the lambs what they need, so that the sheep are doing the work for the producer in terms of raising the lambs. They live well in a variety of weather conditions and environments. In this case, the cross was meant to be able to acclimate well to the highland areas of New Zealand and Australia, where the weather can vary a lot and where they might have to climb, as well as deal with some wetland as well. So kind of an all-around great sheep. Adult ewes weigh between 120 and 150 pounds, and rams go between 200 and 250. So it's a pretty good size sheep. You wouldn't want one to step on you or anything. Unlike Cheviots are a pretty good size, but they're not that big. The size really comes from the Romney, which is a very large sheep. The shoulders, the shape of like I said, the head is kind of long and pointed, and the shoulders tend to slope inward a little bit, which is a really good quality for for lambs to have when, for easy birthing by the mother. So anything that makes birthing lambs easier on the mother makes for a better sheep in the long run, and one that doesn't need to be attended to closely during lambing season, nor do you have to worry about a high level of loss with the lambs. Let's see. Let me just go back to the picture for 1 minute, just so you can have that reference. So there we go. So you can see that it's much smaller up front than it is in the back, and that's what I was talking about in terms of that. But in the back, instead of a big high rectangular butt, it's got that little sloping butt. That's a sign of an animal that has that's able to be a little more agile, able to raise itself up, use its back end to climb and things like that. So those are the things that they look for in a sheep for a terrain such as the one they were breeding for here. All right. Now, in terms of, do you want to hear about Sir Geoffrey Perrin himself? I know I usually try to tell a little story about the person and, kind of the person behind the breed. So he was born in 1892 near London, and by the time he was 14, he already had plans for a career in agriculture. He originally wanted to join the Navy, but his family wasn't really too keen on that. But he did decide to move to Canada to work on a farm in southern Ontario, so he could kind of, you know, get experience, and this was common. So looking back to when we did the Polwarth, I don't know if you remember, but part of that story also was that a crew of scientists and agriculturists from Canada and America traveled to Australia to look at the Polwarth, the family farm that were producing the Polwarth breed when it was new. And the son kind of piped up and said, "Do you ever hire farm hands?" You know, and he went off to Canada to work on a ranch up there. And so this is a similar story where this boy from London decided that to kickstart his career, he would go off to Ontario and then British Columbia to work as a teamster and an orchard worker. And that really clinched his interest in the agricultural sciences, and also his desire to advance himself and to get educated in agriculture. So he applied for and won a scholarship to Ontario Agricultural College, and in Guelph, which I've been to Guelph in one of my teaching tours up there, and got his BS in agriculture. And by the time he graduated, World War I had started, and so still kind of desiring to serve in the military, he went off to fight for Canada, actually. So he served in France and on the Western Front, and earned some commendations during his service. And afterward, he returned to England and worked as an assistant in the Ministry of Agriculture before becoming a lecturer at the University of Bristol. Then in 1924, he got married and started looking for a new life, something more, someplace or something that he could make his mark with. And he took a position at the University of, at Victoria University College in New Zealand. So it was at that point that he went off to New Zealand and stayed there for the rest of his life. So excited to be there and to contribute to the improvement of agriculture in a fairly young nation, and to prove himself in his field. He began taking on the role of actually developing a new college for agriculture in New Zealand. And this was in the North Island. And this was the school that would eventually become Massey Agricultural College, and which is where he later developed the Perrendale breed. Let's see. Together with another professor, they raised funds. They did some fundraising and purchased land and established this new college, which he grew from the 20s through the 30s. And then with the advent of World War II, he once again went off to serve, this time for New Zealand, at home or on the homeland rather than going, overseas. The college kind of went through some struggles during the war years because, at that time, mostly men went to college, and particularly an agricultural college that would be mostly attended by men, and many of them were off at the war. But after the war, enrollment boomed and the college reopened, and they began to accept women into their programs as well as students from Asia. So Massey College actually grew to be not just a a better school and a bigger school, but a more diverse one as well. And, that's always, as we talked about before in our talks, that's always good for what we end up, having access to is people from different parts of the world with different ideas about how animals should be raised and what qualities are helpful and useful in animals. With all those different brains coming together, and from different backgrounds, it's always been a really good thing for our personal benefit in the end. And by the 1950s, of course, he was involved in producing his sheep. Let's see. Let me see. I think that's all I have in terms of kind of historical information. Let's see. So it's still a really popular sheep with farmers in New Zealand. There's an estimated population there of over 6 million sheep. So they're not in any way like a rare or endangered breed, at least in New Zealand. Although here, it might not be, it's definitely not an everyday wool yarn. It's certainly not for a single breed yarn. There are a few places you could probably pick it up at a wool show, but even there, it wouldn't be your, it wouldn't be in every booth at Rhinebeck or anything like that. Let's see. So as far as the fiber itself, I talked a little bit about the length of it and the kind of the way it feels. It's more of a silky wool. It is a little bit, it's definitely outside the range of a merino, which kind of cuts off at 24 microns, but it's not that far. The micron diameter, it usually falls between 28 and 32. Some sources will say 30 to 35, but in the medium range of wools. It has nice loft. It's a nice springy fiber, which if you're knitting with it now, you might be able to feel that the stitches are spreading apart a little more and they want to be a little more open and rounder than the stitches of the Corriedale, which want to be more compacted and close together. And I just want to say, like, I think now that we're on the third wool, I hope everybody is, I got a sense last week when we talked about the Corriedale that everyone was definitely, laser focused on the difference between each wool as you knit it. But isn't it really cool to be able to do this, to, use the wools one after the other, kind of in the same way? You're not doing very much different with them, but the changeover from one to the next is a real experiential thing. And I'm just so happy that we're able to do this. We're already working on next year because we're really excited. The discussions we've had have been really exciting about the wool itself. In general, this wool is used. It can be used for garments in the finer grades of it, and that the coarser grades are usually used for rugs. It's because of the influence of the Cheviot, that it has both that springiness and that silkiness and that sturdiness. It makes a really good fiber for rugs and upholstery. And so a lot of the Perendale wool goes into that industry, which is no small industry. At one time, for instance, at one time, all automobile upholstery was made from hardy wool like this. And I think even today, wool rugs are still really popular, and it's still something that you can get well priced. Almost any home can have wool rugs. You don't have to rely on synthetics price wise. Really, there's plenty of rug grade wool in the world available for that purpose. I think, I mean, we do have a couple of rugs that are nylon, but most of the rugs that we have, and we don't spend tons of money on rugs, but most of the ones we have are wool. And we just love them. They're very, very hard wearing and easy to walk on. They feel nice under your feet if you're walking barefoot, and they're warm, and the dogs just love them. You can always tell like when you've got something good because the dogs know it and they gravitate to it. Let's see. Let's see. I mean, some of the sources that I read claim this wool to be next to the skin soft, and I kind of see where they get that from in terms of the silkiness of the fiber, but personally I don't find this one next to the skin soft, although it's not. I don't either find it overly scratchy either. I just have there are other fibers we've had that I think really are more next to the skin soft. But it is nice and silky. It's got, this particular batch has a beautiful, beautiful color to it that to me seems very unusual. It's kind of golden, bronzy. It really stands out against the other colors in our set. Has that goldness in it. So I was pretty excited to get the final yarn. We had no idea whatsoever what we were gonna get. And we didn't see it until we actually got our delivery of this at the Maryland Sheep and Wool Show. But so by that time it was, too late to change it. So I was really glad that it was nice. I think that's really all I have in terms of info. So if anyone has any questions that they want to ask, please go for it. Sheila.
Hi, I'm sorry to disagree with you about anything, Anne, but I do not find this as silky. I find this very rough.
I didn't say that the yarn was necessarily silky, but the fiber itself is a silky fiber. That doesn't mean that doesn't mean that's when it's spun into wool, it's going to necessarily be silky yarn. It's not like silk. I mean, but in terms of like when I use the term silky, I'm thinking of a fiber that's straight and fine and maybe glistens a little bit, and it's not bouncy and it doesn't go boing when you pull it. So when this fiber wouldn't have a lot of stretch to it. It's not built like an accordion, like other fibers.
Okay.
So I might be using the term in a completely different way. I'm not talking about like silk stockings or anything like that.
Okay. Well,
I'm more talking about the way the fiber lays on the animal which is kind of snuffleupagus like, when you see it on an animal, it's got kind of almost like a fluttery action to it, if that makes sense.
It does. And the fact that you're saying you're not finding the yarn silky really reassures me that I haven't lost my feeling in my hand, because I'm like, oh, this doesn't. But thank you. I appreciate understanding that.
Not at all. Susan?
Hi,
Susan?
I'm not knowledgeable, but I really felt like this afternoon when I was knitting with this, when you said silky,
I really felt like the lanolin is really prominent. I felt like I was giving my fingers a massage as I was knitting, and it was very pleasant.
Yeah.
Actually.
It kind of slides along nicely. I mean, I didn't find it unpleasant to knit with at all.
No.
And it reminded me a little bit of nice border Leicester wool, which we haven't done yet in our barn box or anything. So some people may not have a good reference for that, or a nice Lincoln wool by itself. So it does have that sturdy feeling to it without that fine wool softness. It's not like cotton balls or anything like that. Yeah. Audrey?
So what I was imagining is this is going to be a really great work sweater.
Yes.
That it would hold up really well and not catch on things and pull the shape out. And the size needles we're doing it on, size 8, feels like it would make a really great work sweater.
Yeah.
It may become is it whole grain or multi-grain? One of those two.
Well, yeah, they're kind of the same sweater, with one of them is a cardigan and one is a pullover. But yeah, it really has a lot of the same characteristics as a Romney, maybe a little less lofty than the Romney. The Cheviot may lend just a little bit more of that silkiness to it, and it's going to relax more. So you want to expect that when you wash this wool, it's not going to puff up and gain density and bounce. It's probably going to relax a little bit, kind of like a mohair yarn would do, or like the Kent. If you've knit with the Kent and you know how that relaxes a little bit, you can expect similar results. And if you compare the Perendale with yarn number 1, which was Kent, I'm sure you'll see a lot of similarities to that. Jean?
So Anne, hi.
Hi.
How long does it usually take for them to become a purebred breed? Like what constitutes that?
When did they
Because know
establish?
because they know it's 2 separate kinds, and then at what point do they see it as a totally different breed?
Developing a new sheep breed only takes 4 to 5 generations, and sheep can have babies every year. So it doesn't take that long to establish a new breed, depending on the genetics. So what you have to really be producing is a consistent result, a consistently new result. So, like it's like a lot of other animals, when you get the bloodlines are always going to have genetics of the 2 starter breeds. It's never going to have its own, unique, brand new genetics. The genetics are still going to be the 2 breeds, but the conformity in what you see is what you get. So when the both measurable data from the sheep are consistent, and the appearance is what they call it, conformity, is consistent. Like, you can measure the weight and the wool, the weight of the wool, the number of healthy lambs, I don't know, the weight of the carcass, though, even the way it tastes. Those are kind of measurable things that you can measure with data. Then there are conformity things, like the quality of the fleece is a big one. So that the fleece always tells you the story of the genetics and the environment that the sheep are exposed to. And so when you start getting very similar fleece year after year after year, and very similar size lambs year after year after year, they look the same, you know, they have that same head, and the same, you know, characteristics around the head and the skeleton shape and the general weight, all of those things become more and more consistent over time. And then you can start calling it a breed. I mean, I don't know where they actually draw the line, but I assume it's when the breed is consistent and distinct from the two parent breeds. So when you put a Romney sheep next to a Parendale, they definitely look different. But maybe in the first generation, they're not going to look so different. Maybe some lambs are still going to look a lot like Romneys or a lot like Cheviots, and others aren't. And from what I read, it's still true that even now there are Parendales that tend to look more like Cheviots and some that look more like Romneys. And it kind of depends on which ranch they're raised on and how their breeding program operates. So if you're running your own ranch and you're not bringing in sires from other places on a regular basis that are much different than the ones you have, you're going to get the same results. Does that make sense? Jean, where'd she go? Did we lose her?
No, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, that really answered it. Thank you. I appreciate that. That was good.
Yeah. Catherine? I'm sure if I had a degree in husbandry, I could explain that a lot better.
I think you did a great job, actually.
So it's really funny, when I opened up my package, I first thought this was another Kent, but it's funny because listening to you talk about it, I could totally see the subtle difference just in comparing them. And I was wondering, is it the same mill that did this, that did your Kent, that does your Kent DK?
Yeah. Yeah.
And because they look spun exactly the same, but I can, when I'm holding, I've got both in my hand right now, I totally feel that Cheviot kind of feeling in it, and it's subtle. And so then that leads me to my next question, jumping off of Audrey's, which is, are you going to get any more in? Are you going to get any 4-ounce skeins? I'm really intrigued by this. And I'm wondering, just on top of that, how this drapes compared to the Romney, like if you were going to do a garment, how this would, if you knit the same sweater, one in the Kent and one in this, what would the subtle differences be? I'm guessing that this is going to not be as fluid as pure Kent, but it's pretty cool. I really like it.
Don't forget that Kent is a blend. So Kent has 60% merino.
Right.
With it. So it's not 100% Romney. This would be, the Parendale is going to be a lot more like 100% Romney, which is how I kind of look at it. It's not as bouncy. It's going to be, a little, yeah, you're probably going to see a little more fluidity with the Parendale than with the Kent.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So if I did like a cable sweater with it, it would have better drape than one in, say, a merino.
Yeah.
Or a merino Romney blend.
Yeah. And what you could do is experiment with something smaller, like a scarf or a cowl, and just see what you think of that. Would give you a more of a handful of fabric without committing to a sweater, you know, and just see what you think of that.
Are you going to get 4-ounce skeins in, or do you think like try for next year or no?
Well, with these yarns, it's going to depend on how the 2-ounce skeins sell. So if we have a run on something and it disappears, you know, like we're already looking into getting the Folkestone part of our regular lineup, but that just makes total sense because we already have Kent, and that would just be adding another color. But bringing this in would be you know, bring in a whole new line, and it is intriguing that you know, different colors are available, and we'll just have to see how popular it is.
I also, I have to say, I really agree with you about the color. It's intriguing to me because to me, it's one of those chameleon colors that really just like, look at my crazy chair. I keep holding it next to all these colors.
Yeah.
And it plays so well. You know, it's not totally gray. It's not totally brown. It's sort of chameleon-like. And I'm always intrigued by yarns that sort of have that color to them.
Yeah, and it's an odd color to me.
Yeah, I agree.
It's got that yellowy tone in it, that a little bit of brassiness in it that you would think would make it not go with things, but it looks super duper with a cool gray.
It's like when I hold it up to the Folkstone, it makes the Folkstone look really gray. But then when I like hold the Folkstone up to like grays, it looks really brown. So this is a really interesting, the Perrindale's really interesting.
Yeah.
Just super interesting. But thanks for answering my questions.
Yeah, I mean, I keep saying it, but I can't wait till you guys see your finished objects with all the colors. The colors are just stunning with each other, and I can't take credit for it because there were so many unknowns. But the animals always come through for us. You know, it's always going to be the case that the natural stuff goes together, and as long as you've got a good mix of dark and light, you'll end up okay. So, Margie?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Quick question, is this the third yarn for the small kit?
Yes.
Okay. And then it really feels like a hand spun. I don't know if you can see. It's really kind of thick and thin.
Yeah. I think a fiber like this is a little bit harder to control in the spinning. And you know, it might be that it's slightly more slippery, especially being spun all by itself. You know, this isn't a blend, it's a single breed yarn. And so you're going to get a little more variation in the as it goes through the machine. And the other thing is, again, small batch production is always going to give you what I consider like artisan results. So it's like hand-baked bread or you know, homemade cookies. They're not all exactly the same or consistent, but they're kind of yummy for their little ridges and bumps. And with fiber, I mean, not that this mill is not like a small mill. It's a pretty good sized mill, and they have large equipment, but but the fleeces still go in, you know, with sourcing from a smaller farm, the fleeces are going to vary a little bit in quality from one to the other. And that's going to, and we don't do anything to them to make them consistent. So that's going to make them travel through the machinery in a unique way. That's producing a less consistent product than you would get from a big commercial mill with that's using chemicals to dampen some of the unique characteristics of the fiber.
Well, I'm a spinner, so I enjoy it.
Yeah, it is.
It always adds a lot to the finished piece.
Yeah, I mean, one of the goals of producing our brand for me was to offer knitters the opportunity to knit with just all of our yarns in general to approximate a hand spun product in that you're getting that really lively, interesting hand feel that a hand spun gives you when you're knitting with it, without interference of chemicals or straighteners or the benefits that a large mill operation can impose on the fiber. So I always hope that all of our yarns give people something of that experience that a hand spinner gets when they knit with their yarn, and still has the consistency from skein to skein that you can depend on it for knitting garments. You know, that somehow we're striking the balance there, for an enjoyable product that has notes from the farm, which is what I call the little pieces of grass, notes from the farm, and a feeling like it's been handmade for you. So
I've heard those were I've heard those were botanicals.
Yeah. No, they are. And you know, you never know. Some of them, you know, there could be some cool stuff in there that's benefiting you. Including, like you said,
question.
Yeah,
Okay.
like you said, like somebody said, the lanolin in these yarns is going to be higher and much better for your fingers than you know, a yarn that's been stripped of all that. So go ahead, Margie.
Yeah, just for planning purposes, since we only have 3 yarns, are we going to have 5 different pieces? You know, five different patterns, just for planning purposes. I know which color I want to use next.
Yes, the
it'll be 5.
is, yeah,
on the small
5
kit.
different. There are 5 clues altogether, 5 different patterns. So you can save this and wait for the other patterns to see if there's another one you'd prefer to knit with it, or if you have. What are you knitting? Are you knitting the scarf or?
I'm doing the small cow.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you're going to
Okay,
use
okay.
you're going to use 1 or 2 of your colors over again, and okay, yeah. So it's up to you how you decide to reuse color in your piece, but you can make 6.
That's kind of why I wanted to.
Yeah, you
don't
can
remember.
make 6 stripes and use each of them twice and knit one of your patterns, your favorite pattern, over again, or you know, just any way you like.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
And I was wondering, with this yarn, as you know, I live up in Maine on the coast, and we get a lot of wet nor'easters. How does this yarn deal with the wet? Would it?
I don't really have a beat on that. It's not, well, the Romney component of it is gonna provide, you know, I mean, Romney sheep live in a marshy, coastal, they were developed in a marshy coastal area. They actually live everywhere now. So probably in their early genetics, they're somewhat not resistant to water, but the water doesn't stay in their fleece. You know, it will shed moisture readily. You know, that's interesting that you say that, because now that I think of it, I don't think I came across anything that mentioned the wicking qualities of it. But let me just quickly zip through some of the other notes I have and see if any of this. Let's
I agree with what was said earlier. This has a really wonderful feel, but knitting with it, the lanolin in it. I can just feel very wrapped up in a cold winter's day in this yarn.
Yeah, I mean, and with the drape that it has, it would make a lovely blanket, or you know, something like that, or a nice silky pillow, or let me see. Yeah, that's funny. I don't see anything about the wicking qualities of this. In general, long wools are not known for being highly wicking wools, but it's not like when I have washed my pieces and you know, block them, it's not like it dried really slowly compared to anything else. In fact, my guess would be that it would dry very quickly just because of the airiness of the yarn itself.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think the ones that are gonna dry a little more slowly or hold on to their water a little more would be the 3-plies, just because they're so dense.
Mm.
And that maybe this would dry a little more quickly even than the Romney.
Thank you.
Margie, did you have another question? She has her hand up, but she's not there. I think maybe she.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to put my hand down.
That's okay. Anybody else? Anybody else have anything?
I do.
Okay. Hi, Robin. You go first.
I just wanted to say that you had me stumped because I compared this to my Frisian DK that we knit the Grays scarf out of, and I thought it was spot on, even to the color. I was like, this is so nice. It's going to be just like that.
That's a really interesting comparison. I hadn't thought of putting them next to each other.
Oh, like spot on.
Really?
I really thought so.
Frisian fans can look at. That's really interesting, Robin. Thank you for pointing that out. I'm gonna have to.
It's the exact thing I was gonna say. I feel like running downstairs and getting my gray scarf.
Really?
I think yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Must be the cam cable connection going here.
Let me see if I can.
I'm gonna go on mute and go get that scarf.
I'm gonna look for the hat here. We had it here somewhere.
Then
Yeah, I can't put my finger on it. I can't put my finger on the hillock hat right now, but now I'm really intrigued by that idea.
Here's my gray scarf.
Oh, isn't that pretty?
And then here is the
Oh,
Perindale right next to it. Am I close? Am I too close, too far?
No,
Good.
just hold it still and then put the yarn in front of it. There you go. Yeah.
It's a little lighter. I would
But really
say,
it's about the way it feels. It's not as much about the color.
It is.
right.
Totally. Even the way it spun, like I was like, oh, Robin, you're a detective. You got this.
But I do have to say, having been knitting with this during our call and picking up my scarf, there's not as much lanolin in the Frisian. It doesn't have that feel to it. It's a little bit drier feeling, I think is the word I'd say.
Well, and
Anyway.
of course the scarf has been washed and everything, so it'll be interesting to. That's really interesting. I've been too busy to really think about that, but I'm gonna have to follow up on that. Anybody else have a question or want to say something?
And
Yes.
I cheated and looked on the website to see if I could sneak and find out what the name of the yarn was yesterday, and found Perindale listed on your website.
Yeah, that's
and
what I said in
noticed-
the beginning. Yeah, in the beginning I said that.
I came late to the video, so I
okay.
didn't know whether you had mentioned that or not.
Yeah.
But I noticed you suggested some patterns for the yarn, and I noticed now Skyfall. Is it Skyfall that you mentioned? Is that the pattern I'm thinking of?
I don't have a pattern named Skyfall, but
no, it was Sky Ladder. Excuse me,
oh,
Sky
Sky
Ladder.
Ladder.
And
Yeah,
I've knitted that before with a couple of different yarns, and I can just visualize it, Sky Ladder, as in this yarn, and I just think that would be gorgeous.
It would be really pretty.
Yeah, I think that would be just beautiful in this because it has an airiness that would really be beautiful in that. And as soon as I get done with this pattern and the other patterns of yours that I have lined up from Barn Box and other things like that, I intend to do another sky ladder because that's one of my very favorite patterns.
Thank you.
So,
and you know, and it's such a nice mix of stitch patterns in there. There's open work and cables and ribbing and they change directions. So it takes advantage of like any highlighting that the yarn will do.
Yes,
like,
and I've made both the scarf and the hat. So they make a nice set, and I've given them as gifts as a set. So it's a wonderful combination. And I just wanted to say, I can visualize that set in this yarn. And I too think it'd be wonderful. I'm hoping you will bring it out, you know, as larger skeins as time goes on. So we'll see.
We'll see what we can do.
Yes.
I'm glad everybody's really enthusiastic about it.
Yes. It feels good. It has a nice hand feel. The hand feel to it.
We need to we really need to pioneer some kind of way of translating how the yarns feel on the
Feel-o-vision. We need to feel-o-vision. Or
I think they would. I just think they would really sell so much better if people could squish them online. You know?
That would help.
It would.
I have a question, and thank you for doing this. I was curious about I think you call it a remainder stitch. And you have one remainder stitch on the third pattern. And I was wondering if that's just to help transition from the garter stitch to the pattern, or is it are you just adding a little bit of width, or?
It's to balance, it's to make it symmetrical. So if you look at the piece, the hole on each end is the same number of stitches from the edge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Even though one of the stitches is a decrease, it still balances it spatially.
Yeah.
I'm really picky about that. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Actually, this pattern, I think this pattern actually moves back and forth, doesn't it? On one end, it's like closer to the edge, and on the other end, it's further from the edge. Isn't that right?
Yes.
But in order to make that, in order to alternate the patterns, it has to have the remainder stitch, or it's going to be off. It's going to, the hole is going to be off center next, you know, when you move it. So I don't know. I can't explain it. It's one of those puzzle piece things that you have to do when you're designing stuff.
Because somewhere I lost a stitch. And I ended up not having that remainder stitch, but I didn't notice until I was done with that whole section.
So
I just decreased 2 stitches instead of 3.
Yeah.
And it looks fine, and I don't see any symmetry problems. So
yeah, you goofed somewhere. And
yeah. And I looked for a drop stitch because that's always my fear, and I didn't see one.
Yeah, it might be that you did the SSK or you know, the decrease without a yarn over or something and just lost it somewhere, or did one when you weren't supposed to, or whatever.
Yeah, I don't see any missing yarn overs, but who knows? Mysterious things happen.
Susan?
I know you've answered this, but I've had poor reception.
That's okay.
I'm making the lap blanket. And when I'm holding it this way, is this the width?
Yes.
Okay, and this is the length. So you were talking earlier about once we're through the clues, you can then add with what's left of your skeins the patterns. Is that the case with the lap quilt?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, that's what you should do. I put a post on Ravelry if you go in there. And it might be something that one of the moderators could even pin or something. So last week after the knit along, I went in there and kind of explained ahead of the pattern a little bit how many stripes you can kind of plan on for. Now after we get through the 5th one, and even up to that point, you're welcome to knit the yarn in whatever order you want, but the pattern has it in a specific order just for sanity's sake, or my sanity's sake. After the first 5 stripes, you can use the yarns with alternate patterns than you knit them the first time. You can knit more or less rows depending on how much is left in your ball, and I did that with my lap blanket.
Okay.
I ended up with 11 stripes of varying widths. You know, I think the widest stripe is 16 rows, and the narrowest one is like 6 rows. And then the garter borders between, you know, there's garter stitch separating each stripe.
Right.
So, just so I could use my yarn the most efficiently, and I ended up using all but like 15 grams of it. So I did pretty well with that. And my blanket, before blocking, my blanket is 32 inches by 28 or 26, and the finished width and length is, the finished length is 34 blocked and the finished width is 30 blocked. So I have every confidence that it will block out to those dimensions at least.
Fantastic, because I see the wealth of what I have left.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering if that's what your intention was. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, what you can do is weigh what you have left, and then that'll tell you how much you already used for, like say you knit a pattern that was 12 rows total, including the garter rows, and you used 24 grams of your ball, then you know each row was 2 grams. And so if you weigh what's left, you'll know approximately how many rows you can knit with it, and whether you can split that yarn up into 2 more stripes, or do you want to use it in one big stripe or whatever.
Yeah, because I love number 3 and number 4 together. It's beautiful. Together. So I thought, oh, I want to explore that later when we finish the clues.
Yeah, and then switching them around to see what else they look good next to is really fun. Yeah.
I could see number 3 and number 1.
Yeah.
Or number 5.
And it's pretty easy to plan it. You don't have to plan too far ahead with the colors. They all really do go together very nicely. So, you know, the contrast, the thing about the stripes is the stripes are heavy enough that the contrast is going to be there even when it's really subtle. So it's not really that easy to get backed into a corner with 2 undesirable colors left or something.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? We're having oh, go ahead.
Can you tell us a little bit about the farm where the sheep were raised?
Let me do that on Saturday, okay? Because I have to review. I have to review my notes. I have to talk to Zach a little bit more. He was the one that had like an hour-long conversation with the farmer at the show. I did meet her, and I went over there and looked at her sheep and everything, but I couldn't stay. But she is in Maryland. She is located in Maryland. So we'll bring that back to you on Saturday. That way we have something to talk about Saturday.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there a clue next week or not?
No, next week. So we'll have the Zooms will be open, you know, come and knit, catch up. Next week is our catch up week for people that are behind or who just like to knit and want to keep knitting. And the next clue will be the week after. So 2 weeks from yesterday. And it's a nice one.
And
yes.
So am I understanding correctly, if I wanted to purchase a blanket worth of this yarn, is it available or?
Yes.
It is?
Yep. Yeah, I think we ordered approximately 200 extra of each, and we've been selling it, but we still have plenty. There's a comfortable margin still. The those, we made a set due to popular demand. We made a set for upgrading from a smaller kit to a larger kit. So
Right.
there's a 5 skein upgrade that's available, one of each color, and then all the extras are being released week by week with the clues. So right now the Kent, the Corriedale, and the Perrindale are all available in single skein quantities. And we only have 2 ounce skeins. We don't have 4 ounce skeins of any of these yarns yet. So because we were ordering for the knit along. So
okay.
Do we know the yardage on the release skeins yet?
They're all 150 yards. So
150
all
yards.
the
I'm
yarn,
sorry.
yeah.
I know I should have known that, but I couldn't
No, that's
remember.
okay. I don't know that it was originally listed on the site, but I did go in and list it at the beginning of the knit along. They conform with all of our DK weight yarns, which are all put up at 300 yards in 4 ounces. So these are 150 yards in 2 ounces.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, you talked about blocking a few minutes ago. How heavily did you block? You really?
I haven't had to block very heavily. So I haven't had to really stretch anything much at all, mostly laying it flat. I've been using blocking wires to keep the edges nice and straight because for our purposes for photography and everything, that's always really helpful. Now
Well,
with
a lot of it's stockinette, so it rolls at the edge, I realized. But so
yeah,
that's
and the garter stitch will expand a little bit. It will relax quite a bit.
Once it's soaked, yeah.
So just soaking it will
Okay,
cause it
so
to
you
relax.
wet block everything, right? I mean, you wet block.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I might have to stretch my blanket a little more than the other pieces I made, but I don't expect to have to rigorously block it.
Okay, so it doesn't need like a lace stretch it way out.
No.
Fairly
no.
light blocking.
No.
Okay, thank you.
You're
You
welcome.
talked about blocking, and I'm so used to. I do a lot of lace things, and you're like laying on the floor with your arms and legs, and
yeah, really pulling hard on that stuff. Yeah, you won't have to. You shouldn't have to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yay.
Susan, did you have another question?
I did. Just out of curiosity, I live like 10 minutes from the fairgrounds for the Sheep and Wool Festival in Maryland.
Uh-huh.
And saw you, and we purchased, sister and I. It was great. What town is the farm located in Maryland?
Let me look on my Zach.
So Susan, are you going to invite me down to go to the farm?
Yes, dear. If you're nice.
I'll have to tell you that on Saturday. Is that okay? Because I thought I had it in a text, but I don't. Zach sent me a picture of the brochure, or put a picture of the brochure on Dropbox. So I'll have to look. I just don't remember offhand where it is.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. How's everybody's garden doing? We've been eating greens from our garden, baby greens.
I had raspberries yesterday and today.
Oh yeah. We don't have those. I've never planted those. They're hard to control if you don't have time to, prune them and stuff. But I've been thinning out the Swiss chard and beets, so we've had a couple salads with that.
Ooh, yummy.
Yeah, I mean, everything. Oh, we had a cucumber too. We got a cucumber. Those are starting to come in, and I see baby squashes on the plants.
Some things eat my cucumbers. I have only half cucumbers on my vines at the moment.
Oh,
yeah. So
Nice
I
of
gotta,
you to share.
yeah. I'd rather if they would just eat every other instead of half of every one.
Oh,
what is it? Huh?
I had trouble with my strawberries. I had a grub that's like a lawn grub. And I had maybe 20 plants in a row and it took out 16 of them. Yeah, we had so much rain this spring that nothing looked dead till we had a hot day. And I was out there picking strawberries with my grandson and he went, "Oh, Nana, I pulled up a plant. I'm really sorry." I said, "Oh, well, you must have just tugged a little hard." And then I went over and the whole plant came out. And the next day I went through trying to figure out, and these grubs, if you ever look them up, lawn grubs, they're like from another planet. They look like something out of an imagination, and they're kind of pasty white and see-through. And by gum, I pulled out about 11 or 12 of them, and they just had infested that bed and eaten all my strawberry plants.
Do they like undercut at the roots or?
Yeah, they undercut. And what happened is it was so wet, there were some tiny baby roots starting to grow. So during all the rain we've had a lot of rain in the Northwest. The plants looked fine until it was a hot day. And then that big taproot, the big root, was noticeably not there. And all the plants just shriveled up. So that was new. I haven't
you must
had that
you must
before.
explain this word to me that I don't understand. This RAIN, what's that?
Yeah.
I live in California and we don't have that.
We need rain.
We have a daughter who lived in Fresno for a while, and her daughter, so my granddaughter, was about, I think, three, maybe a little closer to 4 when they moved. And they came up for a visit, and she first looked at the trees and said, "Oh, look, big Christmas trees." First. And then it started raining, and she said, "There's water falling from the sky."
Exactly. When it rains here, we run outside and do a happy dance because we don't know what that is.
She was so funny. Those were her words. "There's water falling from the sky."
I know. Well, believe me, we adults do that the same way.
Where in California are you?
Napa Valley.
Okay. Yeah.
It's beautiful here, part of the time, and we love it here. I love living here. Been here 30 years, but no, we don't have much in the way of rain.
Oh, that's funny.
Like heading.
Yeah.
You sit down.
Well, we get enough rain for what you're not getting.
My best friend lives in Albany, Oregon, and so we have some interesting conversations. It's 100 here. How is it in Albany? Well, we're kind of, we're building the ark out back.
Susan, do you have a question? You just can't get your hand to go down. You have to go out?
So I have a question.
Yes.
But after you're done with your dog, because
I don't know what she's doing.
That's so precious.
She's just standing here.
Yeah.
Well, she makes for great company.
She's a love bug. Yes.
Yeah, and you're talking, so she's probably
go Go ahead. She's not moving.
Is that cardigan?
This is Erin.
Oh, this is Erin.
Erin, yeah, this is our newest addition.
Ah, she's so beautiful.
Yeah, she's a good girl. She's a sweet.
She's looking so healthy too, Anne.
Yeah, we were at the vet yesterday, which is the only place. I mean, we had to drug her to bring her to the vet. It was, the first visit was horrific. But yesterday was much better. And she did a little bit better with the drugs.
Is she knitting yet?
Not yet.
She hasn't learned how?
No, but
He's upset
obviously
because there's no Erin.
She obviously likes the knit and chat. she's into the group dynamic here. Right?
So my question is, so the Kent DK that's part of this project, it says it's 150 yards, right? And the that's for 2 ounces, and then the Kent DK that I have for Robert's, I have an extra skein with Robert's sweater. It says it's 220 yards.
That's worse.
Which for
that, that's wrong. That's David mislabeling stuff.
Okay.
The Kent DK has 300 yards and 4 ounces. And when we got that mussel shell in, I don't know if you remember, we were out of it for quite a while. When we first got it in, a couple people got their, and this only happened to a couple people, got skeins with wrappers that said 220 yards because David made a mistake when he printed the labels. So that's been corrected. So
okay, so it's really 300.
Yeah, you can go ahead and mark that 300.
I will.
Sorry about that.
I was just looking at it and saying they look so much the same. I'm not sure why that happened.
Every time he prints labels, there's some mistake on them. And,
going on.
We have this
I'm
tug of
sorry
war.
I brought it up, David.
No. We have a kind of a tug of war going on where I'm just like, make a template, or I can make a template for you. Make a template with all the right information except for the color and the lot number. No, I prefer to do it my way. I'm like, okay.
Okay, right. You got to respect that, but
Yeah. But he's wasting everybody's time with it because he prints a bunch of labels and then
paper.
Well, yeah, and that. But anyway, I'm tattling on David.
You are. So thanks. I thought there'd be an answer.
Erin, do you have to go outside? Huh? The thing is, asking her if she has to go out just means she has to go chase a squirrel or something.
Exactly.
Let me take her out. She might have to pee. Come on, let's go. I'm gonna bring my keys. I don't want to lock myself out.
I love looking at the yarn behind Anne. I'd love my house to look like that.
I'd just be satisfied if my yarn was that organized.
Well, yeah, there's that. My dream room, my office and combination office and craft room would have built-in shelving and closet space.
Are people thinking about Rhinebeck yet?
When is it? I live on the other side of the country, so.
It's in
Oh.
October, but there's a sweater knit along for Rhinebeck. I know what I'm doing.
What are you doing?
I'm gonna do a vendage with yarn from a local mill here on Whidbey Island. And I don't know where my sample is, but I'm excited about it. I've got so many projects, I can't hardly read the emails because I really can't afford to buy any more yarn till I use all the yarn I have.
Have you heard of the acronym SABLE? Do you know SABLE as an acronym? It's somebody taught me that at a Stitches West convention once, and it's SAB. It's Stash Acquisition Beyond Life Expectancy.
Audrey,
And I think I'm there. So yeah.
me too. Audrey, what was the name of the sweater again? You're making
I call it vendage. It's like a sweater coat.
Can you spell
It's
it?
a long one and it's bulky.
It's beautiful.
What is it?
Yeah.
V-A-N?
V as in Victor.
V-E-N.
Okay.
D-A. And then I'm not sure if there's another N there or not, but it ends with G-E.
Okay. Try that, see what we come up with. There it is. Very pretty.
Audrey, that's on my wish list too. That's a beauty.
Oh, yeah.
It
that's the
is.
one. Oh, yeah.
I've been making a lot of sweaters and shawls with very thin yarns, and I thought I might like to try a worsted weight and see if it goes a little faster.
That's beautiful.
A couple of years ago, Cynthia, I don't know if Cynthia is still here. Speak up if you are, girlfriend. Cynthia and I had matching ones that we wore to Rhinebeck. It was great silliness and great fun. And that was one of the years that it snowed. So we were very happy.
Unlike this past year when it was like 85 and muggy, nobody could even.
But it was nice because it wasn't crowded. Like, didn't you
Right.
think? And we go every year. I live in Connecticut, so I'm not too far away. But we were like, this is heaven.
Yeah, it was perfect.
It was excellent.
85 and humid, and it was perfect. Excuse me, we Californians just went, what?
Yeah. There
I'm
wasn't a
in
lot of-
Maryland. I'm telling you, it was perfect.
It was perfect. Yeah.
Well, I think you've just added that sweater to my to-do list because that is gorgeous.
Yep. Now, does she come up with a Rhinebeck sweater that's created just for Rhinebeck? She designs one just for Rhinebeck? Because that's what she was saying last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think last fall she was creating a new one, and that's going to be her Rhinebeck sweater or middle on this time. I think.
Interesting.
She's supposed to release a new pattern.
I think I saw it on the website. I think
Yeah.
I got an email recently.
I don't
about-
know what it's going to be, but there's a new, I don't know what the name of it is. I can't remember, but there is going to be a new pattern release. And she made it in Targi Tango worsted.
Worsted. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
she's calling it Torrey Pines or something. No.
Oh, she
Pine.
made it for, yeah. She has you're talking about Anne? She has something already called Torrey Pines, I think.
Okay. Well,
Already
it was
have a pattern called Torrey Pines.
okay. That's not right then.
Yeah, like mid-July is what I thought she said.
Yeah. That's what I'm going to make. That's what I want to make for my Rhinebeck sweater.
I'm making the interlock and I'm working on it right now.
Oh, that's so
Beautiful.
beautiful.
Lovely.
Yeah, I'm working on
Nice.
sleeves. We're almost there.
Beautiful.
It's a little short.
Yeah. I'll get there.
We have faith in you.
Yes, this is going to be one
What
of
yarn
my
is that? What are you using?
The Fin Dandy
Oh, that's beautiful.
and the Color of Lynx.
Okay, Jean has the most wonderful posting of Robert in the one she made for him. And his comment was that he felt like a knight in armor. What, Jean, you can explain it.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah, that
great
was it.
photo.
Yep.
I showed my husband that and I said, is this
I'm gonna
what you're
make the,
thinking of that
Highlander.
you would like?
Yeah.
He has to have
I
a
don't mean to
kilt.
start
He has to
anything.
wear a kilt.
There is nothing better than approaching a man at Rhinebeck and saying, "Oh my God, your sweater is gorgeous. What's the designer?" And we did this to this guy, and the guy's like, "I don't know. My wife is in that store." Like, the poor guy was so embarrassed because people kept coming up to him. He didn't know who the designer was. When I was going to take my husband, I'm like, "I'll write it down on a piece of paper, put it in your pocket," because people want to know.
That's
The poor
great.
guy.
I like that.
The poor guy was so embarrassed. It was pretty funny.
Oh, has anybody ever been to Stitches? Any of the Stitches?
No.
Yes.
Oh, I used to go to the one in Santa Clara here in California all the time. And everybody walks up to everybody else going, "Ooh, what is that? What yarn is that? What pattern is that?" And we all pounce on each other.
Yeah, you're
And
taking people from behind them, you know.
yes, we also when we would grab each other's yarn. I mean, each other's. What sweater is this? What did you do? What is this out of? And every year, well, for a couple of years, there was a group of men in kilts because they were from somewhere in Scotland, as I recall. And we'd follow them around because they were so gorgeous. They would stand around and they'd knit. They were knitters, and they wear these leather kilts. They were gorgeous. Oh, men in kilts. Enough said. Knitting, men in kilts knitting.
The perfect man.
I know. But they didn't have Stitches for a couple of years because of the pandemic.
Now, Anne, are you in the same spot at Rhinebeck every year? Because I remember where you were last year, inside a building, like you came around the corner, you were right there at the end.
Oh, I know. I hope we get that spot again.
It was a great spot.
That was actually a new spot for us. We had been for 2 or 3 years, we had been out in one of the white barns, the furthest one away from that building, out near the parking lot. And they gave us that spot in the exhibition building, which is much better. They actually gave us a spot in the exhibition building, which was supposed to be one of the little booths squeezed in, like in the middle of a row. But then because of COVID, they rearranged everything and spread everything out. So we ended up with that spot, and which is a great spot. And it is a spot. The previous holder of that spot retired. It was a double booth, and that farm retired. It was Brooks Farm in Texas. And so they won't be back. So we're hoping that they'll give us that space permanently, because we loved that space. It was really good for us. Yeah.
That wide open. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And right on the corner, like everybody walked by our space. That was really excellent. So I'm holding my breath, waiting to hear what it's going to be for next year, but I hope it's going to be that.
Did you hear us talking about your Rhinebeck sweater? That you're going to release a pattern?
What's that?
There was some discussion about the fact that you were going to release a pattern for Rhinebeck. Yeah. And next month sometime, maybe?
Like when?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a pattern ready to, it needs to go through proofreading, but it's ready to go. That I need to get to the proofreader. So it'll be ready before the Rhinebeck sweater knit along begins.
When is that usually?
What?
When does that usually start?
Well, we usually start it in early August, or we did last year. So our plan is to start it the first week of August. Let me see if we have I don't know if we have a date picked.
Not that everybody's anxious or anything.
Yeah. Let me just look at the calendar first. So, yeah, I think we were going to start the 6th of August. Let me see if it's on Trello.
Will it have the option of being a cardigan?
Yes.
Yes.
It's it's a worsted weight sweater. But I think what we talked about was that August 6th was going to be the first meetup.
Definitely, summer's going so fast. That's not too long away.
Oh, I know.
Another month.
Crazy.
Wow.
And what yarn are you going to use for the Rhinebeck sweater?
It's knit in Targhee Tango worsted, but you can use any of our worsted yarns to knit it. And the needle size is 8 and 10.
Oh my.
It's that for people who've been in the knit alongs since the spring, it's that saddle shoulder sweater with the cables. The cable goes up the arm and over the shoulder, and then there's cables in the front. And the rest of it is like an easy knit and purl rib with a texture to it. Oh, I know. Let me see if I can find it in my share content.
You had pockets on it too, didn't you?
Yeah, it has pockets.
Do you have the
Hang on,
ballpark yardage, Ann, do you think? Ballpark
I'll
yardage,
find
do
a
you think?
I don't have it with me. I don't have it with me.
Are you thinking
I
about
think
your
I-
sweater quantity?
Yes, I was. Seeing that the sale is going on.
I can look. I might have one number that I can at least. God, I have a lot of pictures. Here we go. So.
You brought the pieces to Red Alder.
There's the shoulder and neck.
Oh,
I
God,
can
stunning.
beautiful.
Very
yeah,
nice.
that's not blocked. I'll get some more. Hang on. Hopefully it'll be in the same place where I left off.
It's beautiful though. Well,
Thank you.
I love the texture.
Come on. Oh. I have to scroll all the way back to that spot. It's an all over texture. Here we go. So this is the pullover. And again, these are unblocked, so forgive any
We forgive you.
that it looks kind of wrinkled or whatever.
So
it
you
looks-
have an option of making it a cardigan or a pullover?
Yes. I'm screwing things up here. I'm not that good at this. I didn't realize I could pick multiple photos, so let's try this way. This. Okay. So that's the pullover. I'll bring up pictures of the cardigan in a minute.
That
Oh,
is
that's really pretty.
beautiful.
Stunning.
Yeah. It looks like I can scroll through.
What's the colorway for that?
That one was the Target Tango worsted in Opalato, which is the darkest color. And now I'm going to show you the cardigan in Nuevo, which is the second color. So there are 4 shades from white to dark. Okay. Here's Abby wearing the cardigan. So you have options of crew neck, V-neck, cardigan, or pullover.
Wow.
Just beautiful.
Yeah. And pockets or no pockets. Let's see.
Wow, wow, wow.
Yeah, I love I love both of them. I mean, the Target Tango is so lightweight that even in a big bulky sweater like that, it feels really comfortable to wear. And it's kind of an oversized shape with the
positive
saddle.
ease then?
Well, you can have more or less positive ease. It has a slightly dropped shoulder, like the shoulder drops 3/4 of an inch or an inch off the shoulder, and the sizing is generous.
Mm-hmm.
If you prefer not to have that extra room, you don't have to size it that way for yourself. Some people don't really want that much extra.
No, I like positive ease. I mean, you always you're wearing it over something, so you want it to look.
Yeah, I do too, but in some fabrics it can be too much, Here's a mannequin shot of the cardigan, just so you get an idea of how many buttons. Let me see, 1, 2. I have 7 buttons there. And I think all the sizes have the same number of buttons because the length, and it's a longer length. I believe, let me look and see if I have a copy of the pattern on my iPad. I'm not sure.
It's really pretty.
Yeah, it's really easy to make it shorter or longer. You just add or subtract to the length. It is seamed. So that is. I see you.
Do you know what size we're looking at, Anne?
That's the small medium. It's 41 inches in circumference at the chest.
Okay.
Looks like I use 1,255 yards for that. that's without any padding. That's like my basic yardage. And the side seam length is 17 inches. So that's a pretty long length. And then sizing up or down, I know we're going in 5-inch increments, just to keep with the pattern. And I would say, and we usually end up with 100 to 150 yards difference between sizes, if that's helpful. So in other words, a
You're
45
talking about
inch.
the cardigan.
What?
You're talking about the cardigan as far as sizing and the difference?
They're similar, you know,
Oh,
they're
okay,
gonna
okay.
be similar.
Okay.
Actually the pullover does take maybe 50 yards more.
Okay.
What are you going crazy over there? So the next size up, like a 45 inch, would take approximately 1,400 yards plus whatever padding you might want to. I usually add 10% padding for swatching and knitter differences and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
So then you're
Always
talking
go
about
with a little bit more.
Yeah, it never hurts. I mean, you know, it's such a great yarn for making a hat or mittens with. There's
Oh, what a great idea to have a matching hat or a hat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
will you be
yeah.
designing like an
Yeah,
accessories?
maybe you even know a designer that could do that. Like, yeah, that would be a great fall project for to swatch around. Yeah. So that's that.
It's gorgeous.
Thank you. I really, the couple of times I got to wear it, I really liked it. So
I love the idea that it hangs straight. There's no ribbing at the wrist or the bottom. It's stunning, and it really is very nice.
It's ribbed all the way through. So the whole, really the
It
whole
looks very nice.
Yeah, yeah. And so it has a very it'll keep its shape nicely because of that. You know, and
Beautiful.
Thank you. So that's one thing I have. I have a couple other things I'm working on, but it's been a terrible summer for getting work done. We have I've just ended up having to do a lot of training with people and stuff like that.
How is the fundraiser going?
It's good. We're more than halfway. We've got, like, I think the other day and she hadn't posted everything up to that day. I think she's a week behind in posting or something like that. So what are you up to, YouTube? But Cardigan, what are you doing? I'm sorry. But we had about 4,200, I think, at that point. So our initial goal is 7,000, but I mean, if we blow past that, I won't be sad, you know. So hopefully we will.
All right, folks, I gotta go. Nice seeing you all.
Yeah,
Bye.
it's time to
Bye-bye.
close out.
Bye-bye.
See
Gotta
you
go.
Saturday.
Oh,
Bye, everybody.
bye.
Thank you.